All right, so let's talk about something that just came out. I did not know this, but one of the hottest podcasts in the country is WTF with, I think his name is it Greg Maron?
It's Mark Maron.
Mark Maron. The president had a chance to sit down and talk to him about race in America. We're going to bleep it out, but he uses the N-word. Listen.
Racism, we are not cured of. And it's not just a matter of it not being polite to say in public. That's not the measure of whether racism still exists or not. It's not just a matter of overt discrimination. Societies don't overnight completely erase everything that happened 200 to 300 years prior.
Okay, so there's the President of the United States using the N-word. He doesn't just say N-word, he actually uses the word. So today people are going to be talking, Brett, about whether or not it is appropriate for the President to use the N-word and whether or not it is beneath the dignity of his office.
Yeah, I think he was speaking on that podcast that is known for some crude language, apparently, sometimes, some salty language, and chose to say that. Listen, he has the prerogative, I guess, to say those things when talking about racism from his personal knowledge, and it has a unique perspective, obviously, as the first African-American president. But I think it'll raise some eyebrows, and you'll probably have the White House respond.
Sure, I think many people wondering if it was only there that he would say it and not perhaps in a State of the Union or a more public address, if he's only doing this because he feels, cloaked in the podcast that he felt safe to do it there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the venue. Yeah. So, but he is the president.
The argument they're using is as disingenuous as it gets, because what they're saying is context is 100% irrelevant. 100% irrelevant. Here you have the first black president of the United States of America using the N-word while making a poignant point about racism. He's saying, look, it's not just Bull Connor anymore, turning the fire hose and dogs on black people. I mean, it's not just that kind of racism. That's not the only kind of racism. It's subconscious. It's systemic. There are things that, linger for decades after. He's making a very important, smart point, and he's using the N-word in that context, and they're acting like, oh, how dare he? Him saying that is just as bad as a former plantation owner in the South in 1883 saying it. But it's not. This reminds me of how conservatives get all angry when black people use the word in a different context. We've all seen it, young black kids saying it to each other, where they're just saying what's up and they're using it in an endearing way. And you have Republicans often try to pretend like that's just as offensive as if they use it. And they also try to pretend that Nigga is equal to Nigger. And we know that's not true. Intent is everything. Context is everything. If you're white and you're saying it with an ER, you're probably a douchebag and a racist. If you're black and you're saying it with the A at the end and you mean it in an endearing way, there's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's classic Fox, because they're just ignoring the context completely. And it's funny how, there was a ... there on the screen when they were showing Obama's quote. Why did they leave that out? Because he went on to make a great point in the middle there about racism. And they're like, leave out the good stuff and just make it as simple as possible and then just attack him for using the word. And by the way, when Richard Nixon's tapes were released, he said the worst things about every group of people. Now, again, Obama's not using the N-word in a way to be racist. Nixon was racist. It was in the tapes. He was talking about, the Jews taking over this. You can't trust them damn Jews. But what? No conversation about Nixon. And it's not like the tapes were released fairly recently. It was just fucking crickets on Fox News. You can't hear anything because it was a Republican. He's a white guy and he gets a fucking pass. Nixon said that, supposedly Mr. Pro-Life, because he's a Republican, right? He was like, actually, abortion is okay in some circumstances. When you have a black and a white, for example. Where's the Fox outrage for that? Your entire party has been using the Southern strategy since the fucking 1960s. The Southern strategy is where they say, we want to get the white vote, so we're going to appeal to racists. They've admitted that they've used that strategy. They got nothing. They got no condemnation for that. But the first black president ever uses the N-word in context. Outrage! We're so mad about the N-word. Somebody said something hilarious on Twitter. They're like, all these white people are so angry Obama used the N-word, and then they go listen to Snoop Dogg on their iPod. Yeah, that's pretty much right. And let me just say this in closing real quick. There are so many Republican politicians who have accepted donations from white nationalist groups. Who was the guy recently? Steve Scalise? This guy spoke at a white nationalist conference. He was buddy-buddy with David Duke, who was a neo-Nazi and a KKK Grand Dragon or Grand Wizard or whatever fucking goofy name they call it. You have one party in this country is cozy with and snuggling with overt racists. But that pay no attention to that whatsoever because the first black president ever used the N-word in context. So I guess racism's equal on both sides.